Alan is a useless prince who gets stripped of his nobility and banished into the woods to live with pigs for being weaker than Prime Sakura. The truth, however, is that he was actually an overpowered hero in his past life, but because of how thankless hero life was, he would rather live out his days getting freaky with baddies in the countryside. But before this, it all starts with Alan waking up to his little brother yelling that their douchebag dad is calling him. The kid's clearly sick of Alan's lazy ass and honestly hopes their father will stop treating him like a princess. But Alan has a weird feeling that today will be different. When he steps into the throne room, his dad wastes no time reminding him that even though he was born into the big deal Westfeld family 15 years ago, he's still stuck at level 1. His dad calls him a disgrace, tells him he's out. But instead of sulking, Alan actually feels relieved. He's finally free to do what he wants, so he decides to head east and keep it low-key. On his journey, he stops to rest and spots a knight fighting off some regenerating stone dogs. The knight is getting wrecked, and the girl with her refuses to run. Turns out, that girl's Princess Lizzie of Adustella, so Alan wonders what royalty is doing out in a place like this. He then remembers a time when Lizzie once stood up for him, when everyone else was clowning him at some ceremony, so he decides he's not just going to stand there. The knight Beatrice gets taken down, and Alan rushes in just as Lizzie yells his name thinking it's game over. He gets there just in time, and that's when he realizes that someone really did call out to him. Lizzie wants to know how he pulled that dramatic entrance stunt, like an action movie cue, but Alan's too busy folding the dogs like wrung-out laundry. He goes full overkill with flashy moves, and the stone dogs are sent back to the mold.
They are dogs who refuse and not apologize.
Beatrice is hurt badly though, so Alan heals her like a pro, fixing her armor while he's at it. Alan then asks why they're even out here, so Lizzie says she had a vision telling her she could stop something awful from happening, but it seems like the awful thing almost happened to her.
Women, huh?
Alan says they should talk in the busted carriage nearby, then fixes it with magic like it's no big deal. Inside, he tells them that he got kicked out, and asks if Lizzie would be cool with him tagging along as a sidekick, saying he's got skills that could help with training. Beatrice thinks he should probably be sent back home since he's technically important, but Lizzie says she'd rather have a friend along than follow some boring royal rulebook. By the time they reach the village, the place feels suspiciously quiet. Alan realizes that no monsters have shown up since he came around, which is kinda odd. Maybe they're scared of something nearby. Up ahead they see villagers outside a building and someone got tossed out like a piece of junk. Lizzie recognizes that someone as Akira, the light from her vision. But Akira has no clue who this girl with the dated haircut is, which annoys Lizzie, since they've shared a meal before. Alan asks what's up with this whole light business, so Beatrice explains it's tied to a rare gift called Valiant. Only one person gets it per generation. And right now, Akira's the lucky winner. She's supposed to have enough strength to take on an army, and Liz's job is to guide her and help beat back the darkness. Later, while they're all eating, Akira says she ended up in the village randomly. Some kid warned her and she almost got offered up to a mountain dragon as a sacrifice. When she asked the village leader about it, he basically told her to mind her own business. When they talk it over, Alan figures the villagers let the dragon stay on purpose, so it'd scare other monsters away, which might explain the silence. Akira agrees and says she told the girl who was about to be sacrificed to hide in a cave. Nothing good came from her efforts though, so now she's planning to take out the dragon and invites anyone who's up for it to join. Alan thinks that this is just a load of crap, but Akira's on her I made a promise hero arc and plans to keep it. After she heads off, Lizzie and Beatrice both decide to back her up. Alan tags along too since he can't just sit around while his friends risk their lives.
You're unemployed, technically.
They meet up near the mountain and start planning. Akira goes straight up the main path, while the others sneak around to catch the dragon off guard. Alan offers to lead, but Akira shuts him down because she's pretty certain that he will steal the show. He tries to brush it off, but she insists there's something different about him. Then she heads up and tells everyone to keep moving. As they climb, Alan keeps glancing at Lizzie, a little worried, but she says she can handle herself. Beatrice then brings up the obvious, why hasn't the powerful Westfeld family done anything about this dragon? Alan figures they struck a deal, or maybe the village was built just to feed sacrifices to it. Beatrice admits that could keep the border calm, but Alan thinks something ain't right. Meanwhile, the dragon senses Akira and attacks. She responds with lightning powers, sure it'll work, but the thing walks out like it just got a free massage, and even mocks her. Akira refuses to back off. Then the dragon gives her a creepy warning, others might die. That's when Akira spots the girl she told to hide. Furious, she demands to know how the dragon found her. The dragon says it let the girl escape, as it never wanted to eat her. It just wanted to watch everyone panic, because apparently he's part-time evil and full-time petty. Akira unleashes her strongest attack, but it's like tickling the beast. The dragon smashes her into the dirt, laughing at the idea of her being a hero. She lies there like a sack of potatoes while the dragon charges up a massive blast, but before it can fire, Alan shows up in full Superman aura farming style and slashes off one of its wings. He taunts the dragon, which makes it mad enough to come at him. Alan quickly tells Libisei to stay with Akira and has Beatrice take the kid to safety, then hits it with a move called Assassin Sword. The dragon's shocked. Someone with a regular blade actually hurt it. This thing's supposed to be god tier. Alan admits it's strong, but after seeing Akira, he's confident his own best move might be enough. The dragon starts playing dirty, using the girls as shields, but Lisei's words fire Alan up. He remembers how he lost hope after being labeled a failure, but now her trust lights him up. The dragon charges a massive blast, and Alan hits him with his end-of-the-world move, ending its arrogant existence. Later, Akira wakes up and hugs the girl she saved. Alan's still wondering how he went from quiet life to Dragon Slayer in a day. But when Lisei reaches out her hand, he figures that maybe a little detour's not so bad after all. Alan wakes from a nap, looking disoriented, probably expecting someone to yell at him. He looks for the others, and Lisei lazily points toward the field where Akira and Beatrice are already in their daily activity of trying to break their own spines in training, like all those useless nerds in class always reminding teachers of assignments. Things are finally quiet for a bit, so Lisei casually brings up her healing powers again, and that gets Alan thinking about stories where saints could just walk into a room and people would start glowing and healing like a lame Lifetime channel drama. But it's different when the actual saint is in fact Lisei. But before that thought even settles, Akira yells from the training field and completely smacks the mood away like a giant sandal, dragging Alan into some training before he can say anything.
Way to kill the mood.
Later in the day, they all get ready to say goodbye to Akira and the little girl she rescued, and while they offer to let the girl come along, she insists she wants to walk on her own. So Lisei checks if Akira's cool with that, and she says it's fine, even though she still looks a little down about not being the one who beat the dragon, but she knows Alan deserves the credit. Alan doesn't think so. He says he couldn't have done it without Akira's help, and to that little girl, Akira already feels like a real hero anyway. Back in Westfeld, Alan's dad sits across from a nobleman as they discuss the dragon mess and how Akira somehow made it out alive. They become convinced that someone gave her a hand, so the guy says it was probably the saint everyone keeps whispering about, causing the Duke to realize that things might be spinning out of his control. Meanwhile, Alan's brother is having a full-on meltdown, complaining that the clay dogs should have done the job, and wanting to send more, but the guy in the suit tells him to chill because those monsters aren't easy to replace, especially not the dragon ones, and even though the guy thinks they're being too slow. But the Duke says it's fine as long as the targets don't leave Westfeld land, they'll get another shot soon enough. They start talking about an elf they've been watching, and the suit guy says they'll catch her soon. Then once he's alone, the Duke drops his nice voice and starts ranting about wiping out all the chosen ones and anyone dumb enough to stand with them. Back on the road, Alan asks about a blacksmith Lisei once mentioned, and she says her friend lives in a border town called Granholm, which surprises Alan because he didn't think cities existed that far out, but Beatrice says they do even though elves are super rare there, and Lisei hopes this friend can make Alan a better sword, one that she plans to give to him as a surprise. That night, Alan lights the campfire with magic before Beatrice can even reach for her flint. Lisei falls asleep on his shoulder, like a cliché romance scene, and Beatrice teases them like the nosy third wheel she is. In the morning, they reach Granholm and go straight to the blacksmith's place, where they find an elf named Noelle totally knocked out on the floor like a log, so Lisei quickly heals her. And when Noelle wakes up, she's happy to see Lisei but looks at Alan like he better not say anything dumb. When they ask her to make a new sword, she immediately claims to be overbooked, until she sees Alan's sad excuse for a weapon, barely holding together like it's powered by hopes and prayers. Suddenly she's interested. Noelle then tells Alan to choose between getting something stronger than a sacred sword or the best weapon she's ever made. Not many people can use gear with final boss energy, but she already knows Alan can. He agrees right away, and Noelle kicks everyone out, slamming the forge door like she's about to cook something diabolical. Inside, she lights the fire and clears the workspace, thinking of Vanessa, the old dwarf who raised her. Vanessa never gave her lessons but always had her close. Watching and helping was enough. Even though Vanessa hated teaching, she became Noelle's biggest influence. Now Noelle promises to make something even better than the sacred blade. Outside, Lissay is worried Noelle might pass out again. Alan suggests finding an inn, and the group heads off. Not far from the forge, a hooded woman watches them, then disappears to report what she saw. The news gets to the shady man in the suit with villain aura, and after hearing that the saint is traveling with Beatrice and another fighter, he's clearly not pleased. Something doesn't add up, so he decides to look into it. At the inn, Alan wonders how to pass the time. Beatrice tells him to chill, but Lissay suggests selling the dragon materials at the guild. Alan agrees since they could use the money. While the girls explore the city, Alan goes to the guild. He shows the dragon scales, and the receptionist stares like she just saw gold, then rushes off to get her boss. As he waits, a man walks up and starts asking questions. No greeting, just questions.
Great work, detective.
Standing next to him is a strangely dressed woman. The man says he's Horace, and the woman is Milena. Horace says he collects stories and wants to know how Alan got the parts. Alan says he fought a dragon with help. Before the talk can go far, the receptionist comes back with the results, but when Alan turns around, the two strangers are gone. Outside, Horace deems Alan as average. Milena just says she doesn't like him. Horace isn't too bothered. A few days later, the group returns to the forge and finds Noelle passed out again.
There's something wrong with her.
Lissay heals her. Noelle gets up and points to the sword. No words, no speech. Alan picks it up and feels the balance right away. It's strong and fits like it was made just for him. Noelle says she's coming along to see it in action, even though Lissay warns her not to overdo it. During the test, Alan moves sharp and fast. Noelle watches everything. She brings up how elves don't usually become blacksmiths. Alan figures it's because of magic. Noelle says she doesn't know her past. Vanessa just found her one day. She starts to say more but then runs on ahead. That's when Horace shows up again, asking more questions. Later, Noelle leads Alan deeper into the forest. The place feels off. Alan clears the fog and a huge wolf appears. Noelle freezes. It's the same one that swallowed Vanessa. She begs Alan to use this new sword and put an end to this beast. Back in the day, Noelle was just a tiny loudmouth brat, always begging for attention from Vanessa, a grumpy old dwarf who treated her hammer like it was her own child. One afternoon, Noelle started whining about being hungry, hoping Vanessa would at least glance at her, but the hammer just kept swinging like she had plot armor against interruptions. After a few hours of being treated like background noise, she gave up, found some bread, and sulked in a corner. Once her stomach calmed down, she got bored again and asked Vanessa how she could tell all the tools apart, but silence answered back. That only made her more annoyed. So she tried picking up one of the giant swords lying around, probably thinking she was in some epic anime training arc. But it was far too much for her, and she lost control, knocking over a whole pile of stuff with it. Yet Vanessa's focus never wavered. Noelle dropped to the floor beside Vanessa and started ranting about how boring the job was. By the next morning, Noelle stayed under her blanket listening, until Vanessa finally stopped hammering away and stepped back to admire her masterpiece. Now back in the present, Noelle stands in the forest with the huge wolf right in front of her. She tells Alan to end it, but he refuses. The wolf isn't hurting anyone. Revenge won't help. Noelle takes back the sword and grips it with shaky hands, readying herself to strike, but Alan tells her that the Fenrir's barrier won't break with anything ordinary, not even her best work. If she wants a win, she'll have to go beyond even the sacred sword. He leaves her to think about it and walks back to the inn. There, he tells Lissay and Beatrice what he saw. He believes Fenrir wasn't just hiding, it was concealed on purpose. Then he asks if they handled their business. Lissay explains that 3 months ago, General Cyril, one of the kingdom's top warriors, was found dead, beheaded, no sign of a fight. Not even magic could figure it out. The only guess left was demons. Their search led them here, and now the pieces start lining up. Far away at the border, Milena looks shaken. The one who found Fenrir isn't just some lucky mage. She hurries back to Horace, who decides it's time to act. Her next job is to kill both the elf and the saint. Milena hesitates, but apparently she's under a slave spell and she has to do anything she's told to do. Horace activates the spell just to tighten his grip on her sorry life. Back at the forge, Noelle works non-stop. Alan's words keep replaying in her head. If the sword's good enough, even Fenrir can fall. She pushes past her limit, and once again, like a bag of potatoes, she collapses. In a nightmare, she sees Vanessa getting eaten. Then Akira appears, actually wounding Fenrir. Noelle wakes up, grabs the sword, and marches straight to the forest. Noelle finds Fenrir again, but the beast doesn't even let her make the first move. It slams her straight into a tree like she owed it money. From the shadows, Horace steps out, surprised she's still conscious after that kind of hit. Then he finally recognizes her. The same loud little elf from all those years ago. He laughs to himself and calls it fate. But Noelle stands up, bloody and shaking. She's not going out like before. She charges again, but Fenrir knocks her flat with one clean swipe. Now she's stuck on the ground like a squashed bug, body barely moving, while the giant wolf looms over her like a final boss cutscene. Behind it, Horace watches with pride. He tells her to stop wasting her gift and join him instead. Her Gromsite eyes are too rare to leave untouched. She doesn't care. She's not interested in being someone's tool. She tries to move, but her legs are basically noodles, something your girl has never experienced. Horace says she blew her chance, and tells Fenrir to finish the job. The paw rises, but just before it crushes her, Alan blocks it with his sword. Fenrir pulls back and Horace's smile fades. He stares at Alan, surprised he left the princess behind just to save an elf. Says it's a mistake he won't walk away from. Alan stays calm like he already wrote the next few pages. Back at the inn, that plan kicks in. Milena sneaks into the princess's room, but the bed is just pillows stacked under a sheet. The real princess hides nearby with her guard. It's a trap. As Milena steps closer, Beatrice lunges from the shadows. They clash fast and sharp, blades flashing, but Milena slowly starts taking control. The princess tries to help, but that moment of hesitation gives Milena the upper hand. She knocks Beatrice down and charges toward the princess. Then her legs lock up. Her hands shake, her body won't move. Before she can figure it out, Beatrice gets back up and tackles her from behind. Turns out Alan had set up a magic field around the princess that stops all tricks, including mind control. He knew someone was pulling Milena's strings. Back in the forest, Horace still acts like everything's going his way. Alan tells him it's already done. Horace snaps and sends Fenrir charging again. Noelle watches, panicking, then calls out to Alan. He hears her, lifts the sword, and swings with everything he has. A flash shoots out, crashing straight into the wolf's chest. Fenrir stumbles, then collapses. Like a cornered rat, Horace panics and runs. Alan picks up Noelle, who blushes and mumbles for him to put her down, but he just keeps walking. They regroup with the others. The princess runs up, clearly relieved. Next morning, Milena's tied up. With Horace gone, his control of her has broken. Beatrice wants to send her to the capital, but the princess says no, she wants to give her a second chance. Milena says her whole village was destroyed, she had no choice. Noelle remembers when Vanessa gave her one too, so she unties Milena and tells her to leave with her, but not to mess up again. That night, Alan tracks Horace. He finds him deep in the woods, but not in time. A demon shows up and kills Horace on the spot. Alan arrives seconds later. The demon says humans aren't ready to know what's coming, then vanishes. It reports back to the Count of Westfeld. The Duke's son hears the news and just nods. He says it's fine, he'll handle the hero, the elf, and the saint himself. In the past, Princess Lise was riding with her uncle when massive creatures attacked out of nowhere. The guards tried to fight back, but their armor cracked like eggshells in an instant. Lise's uncle then told her to stay in the carriage while he rushed out to help, so she stayed inside and watched everyone get their asses handed to them. The next moment, one of the monsters spotted her and immediately tried to get her, but her uncle showed up and stabbed it from behind. However, it turned, tore into his side, and nearly split his armor like a soda can. Still in pain, he stabbed it again, then fell into the river while Lise sat in the carriage, traumatized and useless. And now Lise, Alan, and Beatrice arrive at a peaceful little village. The people there are busy getting ready for the Returning Spirits Festival, a day to celebrate the dead and a few hopes and dreams. Kids run around in ghost costumes while adults decorate like it's a party for the afterlife. Beatrice, on high alert, grabs her sword's hilt like she's ready to battle a spirit right now. A nearby villager explains it's just tradition, all for fun. Beatrice gives a fake laugh that convinces no one. Lissé starts asking around about a man in silver armor she's heard about. But the villagers react like she just asked about a dragon that eats vegetables. No one knows anything. She looks a bit let down, and Beatrice begins wondering if this ghost knight even exists. Alan remembers hearing about it back at Noel's forge. The guild doesn't have info, but one of Noel's customers claims they saw a blood-covered knight wandering a graveyard. Some say he is a spirit wronged by the royal family. When a loud bang echoes nearby, Beatrice nearly jumps out of her armor. She coughs right after, trying to protect any ounce of dignity left, and starts pretending that she didn't just lose 1 million aura points. Noel and Mylene then tease her savagely about being scared of ghosts. Lissé suggests they check the graveyard, so Alan and Beatrice agree, though a little unsure. Alan guesses it might be linked to dark magic from the royal family's past. As night falls, they walk to the graveyard. Beatrice already has her sword out. From the shadows, a quiet villager appears, standing still with a blank stare. He leads them to the village headman's house, says something vague about just passing by, then leaves. The headman welcomes them and says he has never heard of any ghost knight. He offers them a place to sleep. That night, Lissé dreams of her uncle. She wakes to see a silver knight outside. Thinking it might be him, she follows.
Bro, he's dead.
The ground cracks open, the dead rise, and she screams. She jolts awake, still shaking. Alan rushes in and she clings to him like a scared cat. The next morning, the village is full Coco cartoon mode, singing and dancing to What Color is the Sky?
What color is the sky? Ay, mi amor, ay, mi amor.
Lissé, Alan, and Beatrice stand at the edge, unsure if this is heartwarming or just weird. To Beatrice, stuff like this just feels insane. Alan suggests that Beatrice, as a knight, should maybe shut the whole festival down, but she just says it's fine as long as nobody gets hurt, so he doesn't push it. That same weird guy from earlier shows up again and casually invites them to dance, and while Lissé passes on it, she tells Alan and Beatrice to go ahead and enjoy themselves. So Alan checks the area with his magic eyes, and once everything looks clear, he dashes off like a festival just turned into a side quest, with Beatrice chasing right behind him. Lissé hangs back for a second because she smells something strange again, just like before, and the moment she turns around she hears her name and spots a knight in silver armor walking through the crowd. So without even bothering her last 2 brain cells, she rushes after him straight into the dark forest. That weird scent from her dream hits even harder now, and when she looks up, her uncle is standing there, looking like he's been living in a cave, covered in dirt and dried anger, and he tells her following someone into the woods alone is a terrible idea, but she slips up and calls him father, only for him to remind her he's her uncle, not her dad.
He's not your daddy, he's my daddy.
And she says the palace has been searching for him since the day he vanished, wanting to know what happened. He says he's been hiding because he's angry, not just at one person but the whole royal family, and then drops the kind of reveal that sounds like it belongs in a season finale. He claims the king, her actual father, is planning to erase anyone born with rare powers like hers, calling them dangerous tools of the gods, who could ruin everything one day. Her uncle stretches out his hand and tells her to come with him, but she says no because she still believes people can fix things without fighting, and even reminds him how he once said trust was stronger than fear, but right after that he floats into the air with a creepy grin and says even if she dies her body will still be useful, then swings his sword at her without warning. Alan of course jumps in at the last second and blocks it, then pulls Lissé behind him while her uncle stares in disbelief, finally recognizing him as the fiancé he used to ignore at royal dinners, and before things can spiral again, Alan uses a spell that snaps the mind control, and the strange strings around her uncle break like they're made of glass, clearing his eyes. Now back to normal, her uncle says the king wasn't really behind all this, and it was a demon feeding on his anger, twisting it into something worse, and he admits he always hated palace life and ran off to become a knight, saying Lissé was the only one who ever made him feel happy, so he asks Alan to protect her, and Alan agrees without blinking. Then her uncle asks for one final duel, and Alan accepts, and they fight in the rain while the sky turns gray, with her uncle saying this festival allows the dead and the living to meet one last time. And when he finally drops his sword and falls to the ground, he tells her he loves when she calls him father, and says she should leave the life he never could. Back in the village, Alan realizes the villagers are dead, and the cheerful leader is a demon using the festival as cover. He slays it, grabs its glowing crystal, and walks off knowing it's not the last boss. Somewhere far away, the king and Brett are furious that the plan failed, but they're not worried yet, because they still have one last backup, and this time it's serious, because General Cyril has returned. Brett remembered the day his mom died and how his dad immediately got depressed after that. One time little Brett tried showing him a cool rock he found. Pops didn't even bother to look at the boy before calling him a useless piece of trash, which crushed him because he didn't even get why. And then later he heard the maids laughing at him behind his back, so he ran off to hide somewhere quiet, and even though his brother Alan tried to cheer him up, Brett shoved him away because by then he was sure Alan was faking it just like their dad. Years later, Brett realizes he isn't actually a failure at all. But remembering that stuff again just makes him mad, so he storms out of his room and finds his dad in the throne room laughing over some message about revenge, against the kingdom, against the gods, and as his dad burns marks into a map with fire, Brett finally sees the truth. Only he deserves to rule, not his pathetic family. Meanwhile, all over the kingdom, people are whispering about General Cyril supposedly coming back from the dead, and when Captain Edward and his soldier Clark hear the rumors on patrol, Clark gets nervous, but Edward figures someone is probably spreading fake news to mess with people. And even if it's really Cyril or just some faker, their job stays the same: protect the kingdom like Cyril would have wanted. Edward tells Clark they have to honor Cyril's legacy, and Clark agrees, but then some hooded guy steps out of an alley and Clark almost stabs him before Edward recognizes the Archbishop, who says he needs to talk privately. And even though Clark doesn't trust it, Edward tells him to go back and follows the Archbishop deeper into the alley until they reach the training grounds, where the Archbishop suddenly vanishes, and Craig pops up behind Edward out of nowhere, swinging at him, but Edward blocks it like it's nothing because he knows Craig's tricks. Craig grins and says Edward is as sharp as ever, and Edward isn't surprised because they go way back. Though it's weird seeing Craig now after all these years, especially since the last time they met is at Craig's wife's funeral, and before Edward can ask why he's here, Craig drops a bombshell. The Archbishop works for them now and then attacks again, laughing about how they used to spar like this all the time, except this time Craig says he doesn't even need a sword anymore, which throws Edward off big time. Over in his carriage, Brett keeps thinking about his mom's funeral and how he asks Alan why mom is sleeping, and Alan just straight up says she's dead and that everyone dies someday, making Brett cry until Alan tried holding his hand like that would magically fix things. Later, Brett asked what failure meant, and when Alan said he didn't think Brett was one, Brett screamed he was lying because Dad said otherwise. Years after that, when Craig praises Brett's strength and calls him his true son while dismissing Alan as a failure, Brett feels bad for Alan but also stupidly happy to finally be the favorite for once. Back when they were teens, Brett hated how Alan never reacts when people insult him, and when Alan congratulates Brett on his achievements, Brett just sneers because he doesn't want praise from someone he thinks is weak, so he declares himself the real leader of the family, and Alan just says fine, but warns him not to screw it up, which Brett now remembers randomly while the demon appears in front of him, smirking because everything is going according to plan. The demon asks for an update, and Brett says he's used the Archbishop as bait to lure Edward out, which annoys the demon because Edward's stupid gift lets him cancel out other powers up close, making him almost unbeatable in a fight, and that's seriously gonna mess with their plans if they don't figure something out fast. Edward being around is risky, but Brett isn't worried because Craig will handle him, and with Edward gone, Brett can finally use his own power without holding back. Though he does wonder if this time will actually work out for the demon, since all their past attempts have crashed and burned. Then another demon shows up announcing the hero has arrived, so they decide to boost Brett by sharing some of their power with him, and Brett swears this time he won't mess up, feeling like he's finally left his old weak self behind for good. Over in the city, Akira keeps Sarah close as they push through the crowd, promising to get her somewhere safe once things calm down, not noticing the demon tailing them until she ducks into a quiet spot and suddenly spins around calling out the stalkers. She sensed their murderous vibes all along. The demons are weirdly pleased she's noticed, saying it makes their job easier, and when Akira gets ready to fight they just laugh and say this isn't about strength, Then one points at Sarah and activates a magic mark on her, explaining everyone from her village has these, and if he shoots a fireball at her she'll explode instantly. So does Akira want to die with her or run? Sarah tries shoving Akira away, but she stubbornly refuses to leave. Meanwhile, Clark is acting all sus on patrol. The other knights try calming him down. A demon popped up out of nowhere, and when the knights move to attack, Clark yells at them to stop because it's pointless, but the demon claims he isn't there to fight. He wants to reveal the truth about their world. At the same time, up on a balcony, the Archbishop and General Cyril, who is basically Brett's cheap makeshift puppet, start preaching to the crowd that their powers aren't gifts but chains from the gods, and the only way to be free is to ditch them completely, which makes people hesitate until Cyril calls Brett up to join them. Brett points to a massive sorceress dragon nearby, calling it an unstoppable force worth 1,000 soldiers, and when the crowd starts buying it, he brags his marionette power can give them that kind of strength too. The Archbishop said they'd ditch the gods and walk into a new era with new power. That's when the demon reveals itself, and just before anyone panics, Brett informs everyone that the demon is their ally and the one who will give them strength. Since everyone is just robots with very bad processing units, they accept it and admire Brett like he's their new god. Back in the fight, Edward is having his ass handed back to him by Craig, who finally lands a solid hit and mocks him for not knowing when to quit, but Edward realizes Craig's power level is just too high now, and Craig brags that with enough spirit energy, you can even kill gods. Meanwhile, Clark is getting his butt kicked by another demon, but keeps stubbornly getting back up, surprising the demon until Beatrice shows up talking about knights being glorified idiots who die for nothing. When Craig finally knocks Edward down for good and tells him to stay down, someone else walks up. Craig assumes it's backup, but it's actually Akira in disguise, leaving him surprised she's alive, and she mentions that Alan has removed Sarah's curse just in time. And just as Brett is enjoying the crowd's worship on the balcony, Alan suddenly appears, calling his name. Brett's face twists with disgust, wondering why this failure even bothers showing up now. The moron watches in 4K through his magic screen as Beatrice faces off against the demon that attacked Clark, putting the pieces together about how the monsters sent after Edward and the assault on Lacey are all part of the demon's scheme. She calls out the House of Westfeld for working with them, shocking the demon who figures he might as well spill everything since he plans to kill her anyway. While all that's happening, Mylene is hiding in the shadows, and the whole thing gets broadcast across the kingdom like a surprise season finale, where the villain just spills the whole plan out loud with no shame. The demon straight up admits they wanted to take out the general and the princess first so no one would get in the way, and Brett, watching this disaster unfold live, completely loses his mind and screams at Alan to shut it down. The demon explains that their real plan was never brute force, it was to trick humans into giving up their powers on their own, and once that truth drops, Brett goes full rage mode, yelling at the moron for ruining everything while the people watching slowly realize he's been the villain all along. He really would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for his meddling big brother and his overpowered party. Princess Lise steps forward and tells everyone the truth, saying Brett's been threatening her behind the scenes and that all those fancy protector beasts of his are truly his goon squad, and once the crowd hears that, his fan base drops to a -200. Brett scrambles and tries using puppet magic to control the knights again, but Alan snaps his fingers like a final boss, and all the magic strings break, freeing everyone, even the Archbishop and the General. Brett, now completely desperate, starts summoning monsters left and right, and while Alan does feel guilty deep down for failing to save his little brother from all this, he knows he can't let him keep going. Brett even tries controlling Alan directly, but Alan grabs the strings midair and yanks him into a punch so hard it almost knocked the evil out of him. The puppet show has ended. While Alan gets ready to wrap things up, Lacey kneels next to a scared kid and comforts them, but she keeps glancing at Alan, worried he might regret everything later since their dad once called him a disgrace, and it's wild how the one who keeps calling himself a failure still had so many people who never gave up on him. Somewhere else, Beatrice is fighting the demon head-on, while Mylene stays hidden under her cloak. The demon then recognizes her as Horace's adopted daughter. It tries to teleport away, but Mylene throws a knife into its arm, and Beatrice steps up with the finishing blow. Then the Lady Knight rallies the nearby troops, just as Noelle finally shows up carrying more weapons, complaining about how the monkey always makes her clean up his mess. Meanwhile, Akira and Edward are locked in a wild battle against Craig, whose cursed Undertaker gift lets him see every possible future as he fights. Craig says he saw Marielle die in every single timeline and it's broken him beyond repair. Akira begs him to stop clinging to it, but he burns through his own life force for more power, and his lightning crushes her useless magic. Edward senses something twisted crawling into Craig's heart, but it's already too late. Craig stabs himself to stay in control and just keeps pushing forward. Craig says no one understands what he's feeling.
Big spoiled brat.
And Akira gets mad since Edward was trying to help him, but Craig won't listen. Then Alan shows up. Craig laughs because in his eyes Alan has always been a joke. Alan says he wishes he could change the past, but even now he refuses to give up on people. Craig tells him to get lost, but Alan doesn't move. Craig attacks, but Alan cuts through it with ease, and Craig just stands there stunned, wondering when Alan got strong enough to do that. Alan says maybe he's a failure, maybe he's always been one, but even so he's not letting go of hope, and he knows Marielle wouldn't want this. Craig loses it and blasts him with dark magic, sending Alan into a pit of old memories. Inside that space, Alan sees everything: Craig's pain, his love for Marielle, and all the moments he buried. He almost gives up, but then remembers the people still waiting for him, and with that he breaks free and lands one powerful strike filled with all his magic. Craig's demon energy bursts out, swallowing the whole town like an explosion with feelings. Alan dives into Craig's mind, cuts through the hate, and finally reaches him. A butterfly lands on Craig as he fades away, peaceful at last. Later, Alan turns down a noble title because he's 2 steps away from being useless, and a title won't make anything easier. While Lise steps up and says she's taking control of Westfeld now. Beatrice is nowhere in sight, but Lise says she's somewhere safe, and with Alan around, there's nothing to worry about. Noelle yells at him to stop wasting time and get in the carriage, and just like that they ride off, set for life. Henriette watches from afar, disappointed that the first time she observed someone, he was such a big old smelly loser. She wonders why he even bothered to reincarnate if this was how he'd live, but figures he just can't help himself. Back in his old life, Alan used to be a hero, but at some point, he got so fed up with all that hero stuff that he made a wish to the angel, asking to never be a hero again and just live a normal life. Hearing that, the angel actually starts crying and ends up granting his wish. Then he wakes up and realizes it was just a dream. He heads downstairs, and Lise is already done with breakfast. She wants everyone to eat together, and Alan's cool with that. Not long after, Mylene and Noelle show up. But Lise instantly gets annoyed when she sees what Noelle's wearing, basically nothing. Alan tells Noelle she should probably wear more clothes at the table, but Noelle says she's comfy like this, and Alan's seen her dressed like that loads of times anyway. Lise stares at Alan confused, then starts asking if that's actually true and won't let it go. While all that's going on, Lise says Alan's supposed to help her with paperwork today, but Mylene jumps in and says he's hanging out with her instead. Alan just stares at them both and asks when exactly he agreed to any of that. Right then, a guild worker shows up and reminds Alan that he hasn't shown his ugly face at the guild in a while, and he's got a pile of unfinished quests. She tells him to get moving, since some of the jobs involve going to another empire. Alan doesn't really get why he's being sent that far, but thinks if he finds a decent place over there, he might just stay. Noel overhears this and says she's tagging along too, since the Victoria Empire has a bunch of skilled blacksmiths and she might learn something. Alan asks why she wants to tag along like his #1 fan. She tells him traveling alone is boring, so it makes more sense for everyone to go together. Alan just agrees, and that settles it. He checks in with Lise, who says she's got too much work to deal with, but turns out she already called Beatrice to handle everything in her place, so she can go too. Beatrice pouts like my girl whenever I hold out on her. They all hop in a carriage and start their trip to the Victoria Empire. The ride's bumpy and Noelle keeps complaining that the road sucks. She asks if they can take another route, but there's a catch: sand wolves are out there and they're no joke. If they run into them, things could get ugly. Except Alan ends up one-shotting all the wolves like it's nothing. The others just laugh and say they shouldn't be surprised since it's the ridiculous failure who never seems to fail. He thanks them and they keep moving. Later, Noelle randomly asks about Henriette, who she is and how Alan knows her. He says she's the daughter of the Imperial Duke. Lise already knows of her too, mostly from rumors, but she's never met her in person. When they do bump into Henriette, she recognizes Lysée as a princess, but also remembers she's the Duchess of Westphalt, so she wants to know what she's even doing there. Lysée just says she came to check out the town, but Henriette throws shade, saying she doesn't even know how to talk properly, then walks off. Alan follows Henriette alone, telling the others they can go ahead and check out the town. Something about that whole exchange feels off. When he catches up to her, he asks why she's even telling him all this stuff. Henriette looks confused, so he just says it outright. She used to be an angel and has a connection to God, so what's the deal? Henriette finally tells him that in her past life she cared about him a lot, and when he asked for a peaceful life she was the one who made it happen. Alan hears some noise in the town and sees a guy running like he's being chased by ghosts. When Alan stops him to ask what's going on, a dark energy suddenly bursts out of the guy and kills him on the spot. Alan realizes it's demon magic, but before he can explain anything, the Black Knight unit shows up and arrests him right there. Their captain, a serious-looking girl, demands to know why he killed the man. Alan tells her it wasn't him and that a demon did it, but she doesn't believe a word of it, and tells him to come quietly. Before they can drag him away, Alan vanishes into thin air, leaving everyone shocked. The captain quickly tells her knights to shut the town gates so no one can escape. Turns out, Mylene saved him and brings him back safely. Henriette shows up too and scolds Alan for causing problems, saying she literally warned him to behave. Alan looks at Lysée and asks how she got here. Lysée says Henriette told them Alan was in trouble, so she asked Mylene to go get him. That's when Alan finally realizes that Mylene must have demonic powers, which is probably why none of the knights noticed her sneaking around. The whole vibe is tense, and Alan tells everyone that they really need to leave before things get worse. But Henriette points out that by now the town's locked up tight, and escaping isn't an option. They all start trying to come up with a plan, because hiding forever isn't going to work. That's when Henriette suggests they all stay at her place, so they follow her to her mansion. When they arrive, her butler casually mentions that Henriette only invited them as a joke. She gets all flustered and tells them to just go inside already. Once they're in, they all admit the place is actually pretty dang nice. While they're looking around, Noelle asks Henriette if she leaves here all alone. Henriette says she does. She's been by herself ever since her parents passed away, and she was their only kid. Alan asks about the knights patrolling the area. Henriette explains that the Emperor has been killed, which is why the security here is on high alert. Noelle raises an eyebrow and asks why Henriette is telling them something that serious. Henriette says she trusts them not to blab like you on IG, when your boy tells you a juicy secret. Later that night, the moron stands by his window when Henriette suddenly shows up in his room. He tells her that he's sure the Emperor was killed by a demon, not a human, because no regular person could slip past that much security. Henriette actually agrees, but then the goat looks at her and asks how long she's been watching him. She acts confused, but he doesn't buy it. He points out that she knows way too much about him, like how she knew her butler had nowhere to go and gave him a job, or how she randomly ran into Alan in town and just happened to warn him about the Black Knights. According to him, none of that sounds random. Henriette sticks to her story, says it's all just coincidence, and leaves. But when she gets back to her room, her expression changes. She remembers the truth. She really has been watching Alan like a telenovela addict. His past life was full of pain, and she didn't want him to suffer again, so she sent him to this world. Here, he finally met someone who made him smile. Though low-key, she wishes it was her. No starts getting super bored at Henriette's house. She originally came to this place hoping to meet some legendary blacksmiths, but guess what? That never happened. So now she's just stuck like a useless extra. Out of boredom, she starts daydreaming about heavy metal, but not music. Instead, she's dreaming about making swords, which honestly annoys everyone around her. Alan tries to calm this restless gremlin down and tells her the Black Knights are only after him, so she should go see the town before her brain melts, but he has to stay put. After exploring like tourists, a bunch of elves suddenly surround Noelle out of nowhere. Mylene doesn't waste time. She quickly grabs Noelle and brings her back to the group. When Noelle tells them about the elves, everyone just figures it's because she's so adorable. But Henriette steps in and says nothing dangerous happened, though she does admit that all those elves are interested in Noelle for a reason. She also explains that anyone who leaves the forest usually forgets everything that happened inside it, but she's an exception. For some reason, she can go in and out of the forest anytime without losing her memories. Alan's confused and asks how he never knew a forest like this existed, or how its weird memory barrier works. Then he squints at Henriette like she's hiding something. Henriette gets awkward real fast, insisting nothing's going on, totally not suspicious at all. Later, they all head to the elven forest together. Just like before, the elves surround them again. But this time, Henriette tells them not to worry, because their supreme leader just showed up. Right after that, every single elf bows down to Noelle and glazes her as their long-lost ruler. A little later, as they tour around, two kids run up on Noelle and shower her with presents. Percival shoos them away. He then calls out Philip and says he knows Philip's been following them just to meet Noelle. Philip admits it, he wants to talk to their ruler. But Percival shuts him down, saying they're all busy with important stuff. Philip argues that if those other kids get a moment with Noelle, why can't he? Especially when, according to him, the others are the bad ones. That ticked Percival off, so Philip runs away. Noelle later asks Percival what Philip meant by bad people. But Percival avoids the question, and they all just move on without an answer. Somewhere else, we see Captain Rizzard of the Black Knights snooping around outside the mansion. Then a guy named Oswald shows up and she tells him not to make the situation worse than it already is. Back in the Elven Forest, everyone's in celebration mode. The elves are throwing a whole party just because Noelle returned. Percival pulls Alan aside and tells him that now that Noelle has returned, they will get their mojo back. Without their ruler, they're basically headless chickens. She's the reason their community even survives. Percival then tells him that Henriette helped make all of this possible. She was the one who told the elves about Noelle, how she became a swordsmith, and even got fairy powers. After hearing that, Alan thinks to himself that Henriette hasn't changed at all. Even in the past, she was always trying to help people. Percival adds that Henriette also taught them about the outside world, its culture, its people, so the elves could feel more comfortable leaving the forest and meeting outsiders. Alan then asks Percival about the demon children from earlier. Percival hesitates for a moment, but eventually says that strong people can usually sense the aura of a demon. Alan tells him he doesn't hate demons or anything, but he knows there's a reason the elves are living with them. So he straight up asks if Henriette is involved in all this. Percival spills the tea. 3 years ago, Henriette brought demon kids into the forest. At first, the elves didn't like it, but Henriette lectured them about accepting everyone if they wanted to grow. Slowly they agreed. Eventually the elves agreed with her, and over time their mindset slowly started to shift. Later that night, the group sits around chatting. Mylene asks Noelle if she plans to stay here. Noelle says she's not sure yet. After that, everyone heads off to their rooms. As Alan walks away, he subtly signals something to Henriette.
You naughty, naughty, you teasing me, you naughty, naughty.
Meanwhile, Noelle starts thinking. Back when she was with Vanessa, her whole goal was to help her create a divine sword. Now that she's finally done that, she doesn't really know what to do with herself. She ends up stepping outside for some air. Alan quietly watches her from his window. Just then, Henriette shows up in Alan's room and wonders if tonight's the night. But Alan decides to keep this video PG, and says he just wanted to talk in private. But Henriette totally misreads the situation and thinks this is some kind of romantic moment. When Alan tells her to leave, she gets super annoyed. She plops down on the bed and demands to know what the real reason was. Alan asks about the demon children. Henriette explains that demons now are different. If a person really wishes for someone's death, they turn into a demon. But some demons are born that way from the start. Those kids have a rough life because everyone hates them, so the only way they can survive is by following stronger demons. The moron thinks that sounds awful. He asks about the two kids specifically. Henriette says she found them when they were barely alive and couldn't just walk away, so she brought them here to the Elven Forest. The goat tells her she hasn't changed. She's still the same kind-hearted person. Henriette blushes at that. The next day, the group wanders around the forest again like headless chickens. The demon kids come up to Noelle and hand her a stone. Henriette says it's a spirit stone. But out of nowhere, Philip storms in, snatches it, and throws it on the ground. He yells at the kids, calling them evil and shouting that they're demons. The kids burst into tears. Percival immediately scolds Philip and he runs off. Alan turns to Henriette and says it's clear the elves really hate demons. Henriette replies that it's not just elves, basically everyone's a hater. Then she walks off. Alan asks where she's going, and she just says she's got something to take care of. Henriette then finds Philip and tells him the kids aren't evil, they just want to meet the elf ruler, just like he does. She tells him not to treat them badly. Philip listens and says he'll apologize. But before he can do anything, Oswald suddenly shows up, grabs him like a carnival prize and pulls out a massive sword. He tells Philip that now he's going to show him the way into the elven forest. The group sits down for lunch deep in the elven forest, and everyone's enjoying the meal like it's some peaceful filler episode. Everyone except Noelle, who just picks at her food like a sulky toddler. Henriette notices and asks Alan what's up with her, and he just says she doesn't like the taste and probably just needs a little time to adjust. But when Henriette offers to help, he just repeats it. She'll be fine if they give her space. Later on, Henriette tells Percival to take the others on a tour, while she heads back to her mansion to search for Philip. And even though Percival tells her not to worry and says it's probably nothing, she's already on her way. Alan, now curious, asks Percival what's really going on, and Percival explains that one of their elves hasn't come back to the spirit forest, which immediately makes Noelle stop chewing because she already knows it has to be Philip. While Henriette searches town in vain, the lounge act asks Percival if elves always live this relaxed, almost lazy life, and Percival laughs and says elves live so long they don't need to rush anything, so instead of working they just chill. Mylene asks how they even survive without doing anything, and Percival sticks out his hand and an apple drops in it from nowhere like he's doing a magic trick, explaining that the forest just gives them what they need. Lissawe wants to know more, but all Percival says is that the elves and forest are basically the same thing. Alan uses his spirit eye and sees something wild. The elves' souls are literally connected to the forest like energy cables. Percival confirms that elves are born from the forest, and when they die they return to it, so the cycle never really ends. Percival then asks Noelle if she's staying for good, but she says she hasn't decided yet, so Alan asks if he can live here instead. Drissav asks why, and Alan just says he's tired and wants peace, and this place feels peaceful enough. Percival says it's not that easy. The forest has to accept outsiders first. Alan jokes and asks if the demon kids got accepted too, and Percival says they only got temporary permission because Henriette vouched for them. Alan says cool, he'll stay for a bit too, then asks how long short term is, and Percival casually says 50 years, which stuns everyone until they remember elves live forever, so 50 is probably like 5 minutes to them. Suddenly, Percival senses someone unfamiliar entering the forest. Alan thinks it's just Henriette coming back, but Percival says the forest doesn't recognize them. He quickly apologizes and ends the tour. Alan tells the group to leave too since the Black Knights are still after him and he doesn't want drama. Noelle teases Alan about hiding, then hints she's staying to keep an eye on him. Wanlin says she'll stay too, and Lissawe wants to stay, but Alan reminds her she's a duchess now and has work waiting. Later, Henriette returns to find the Black Knight Captain Lisette waiting, accusing her of hiding the suspects in her mansion. Henriette denies it, but before she can say more, the Black Knights storm the place like it's an ice raid. Meanwhile, Percival makes his way to the edge of the forest to meet the person who tried to sneak in. Turns out it's Philip, and he immediately apologizes. But something feels off. Percival takes a closer look and realizes Philip is actually one of the Black Knights. That sets off alarm bells in his head because Henriette had warned him before, those guys are dangerous, and if the elves ever end up fighting them, they probably won't survive. Oswald, one of the knights, comes straight out and asks if criminals have entered the forest, wondering if Percival is hiding anyone. It's clear he means Alan and the others. Percival stays calm and firmly says no, but Oswald doesn't believe him and suddenly lashes out. Right as things are about to turn ugly, the two demon children show up out of nowhere. Noelle learns from the forest itself that those kids are in trouble. She and Mylena head off to help. Lissawe, watching them go, turns to Alan and asks if he's okay, and he tells her he's fine. Then both of them quickly follow to see what's going on. Back in the forest, Percival shields the demon kids and tells them to run. He stays behind to face Oswald, but the guy is strong. He keeps casting magic spells non-stop, and Percival ends up badly hurt. Oswald then turns his attention to the children and prepares to kill them, but out of nowhere, a hammer smacks him on the back of his head. Noelle's the one who threw it. Seeing her, the kids and Percival light up with relief. Oswald, still dizzy from the hammer, looks at her and asks if she's the leader. Noelle says she's a smith, and Mylene adds that he's just her shop clerk. Oswald doesn't waste time, he blasts magic at them, but Mylene grabs Noelle and runs off before it can hit. Percival tries one last time to strike back with his sword, but Oswald dodges easily and hits him hard like a Mortal Kombat Ultimate. That's when Alan finally shows up Superman style. He uses his spirit eye, which instantly messes with Oswald's magic. Oswald is shocked and asks if Alan can see through his powers, and Alan says that his eyes miss nothing. The two start fighting, and Alan ends up overpowering him, so the sour and desperate loser targets Noel again, but Alan blocks the attack without breaking a sweat. Oswald asks if Alan can really see all his moves, and Alan just confirms it, his eyes catch everything. While the fight is going on, Philip quietly walks over to the demon children and starts talking to them like they're old friends. Meanwhile, the Black Knight asshat Oswald is knocked out cold. Alan says that it's a good thing Henriette isn't around to see this, because she'd probably explode. But then he turns around and sees her standing right behind him. She looks mad and yells that he's messed everything up, again. Oddly enough, she doesn't scold the others nearly as much. She just tells Alan that the exits are open now, so he can leave whenever he wants. That throws him off. Something about her tone makes him uneasy. Soon after, everyone starts getting ready to head out. Noelle pulls Percival aside and tells him that she needs to go. She says there's still so much for her to learn, and maybe by traveling with these people she could grow into being a monarch one day. Percival doesn't try to stop her, he just says she's always welcome to return whenever she wants. And with that, Noelle waves goodbye and walks off to rejoin the others. Everyone's loading up their stuff into the carriage and getting ready to leave, when Lise suddenly stops and says she wants to see Henriette one last time before they go, because she feels like she owes her a proper thank you for everything she's done, but Alan just tells her not to bother right now, since Henriette doesn't really seem like the type who enjoys dramatic goodbyes or teary send-offs in the middle of a dirt road. Before anyone can say anything else, a kid runs up to them out of nowhere looking super panicked and starts begging for help, saying they need to save his big sister, which already feels like a side quest, and Lizzie asks who he is, and he says his name is Curtis Lindvist, which makes things weird real fast, because the sister he's talking about is none other than Henriette herself. Curtis explains that the Black Knights showed up and snatched her like she was some rare collectible, all because they think she had something to do with the Emperor's death, and since the royal families never liked her to begin with, they'll probably use this chance to wipe her out and pretend she was guilty the whole time. They all head to a nearby cafe to talk more, and Curtis goes into detail, saying that most nobles hate how smart and useful Henriette is, so they've been waiting for a reason to get rid of her without looking bad. Noelle doesn't even hesitate. She immediately says they should help her and clear her name, but Curtis warns them that it's not going to be that easy, since the royals already see Henriette as a walking threat. Lise can't understand how anyone could hate someone like Henriette, and Curtis just says it's because she's too good at what she does, and people who don't measure up usually hate that kind of thing. Alan then asks if Curtis has any family who might be able to help, but Curtis says they've been on their own for a long time and no one out there is coming to the rescue. Lise starts thinking back to when Henriette said she was an only child, which makes her wonder how Curtis could even be her brother, so she starts getting a bit suspicious like someone in a detective anime. But before anyone starts accusing him of being a shapeshifter, Curtis apologizes and says he only said that because he didn't know who else would help, and they looked like people who actually cared about Henriette. Alan tells him they'll need to think about it first. Meanwhile, Henriette's stuck in a carriage with Lisette, who keeps acting smug while Henriette complains that she should be treated better as a noble. Lisette says she's just following orders, or her head might get launched like a cannonball. Henriette says that if her friends get hurt, Lisette will be the target instead. Later, they meet Curtis again, and this time he introduces them to a coachman he trusts, and as they ride toward the Imperial Kingdom, Curtis keeps looking around nervously like something might jump out, and he tries to ask Lise what she and Noelle were whispering about earlier, but Lise just lies and says they were talking about how cool the carriage looks. Alan's not fooled at all, and directly asks Curtis how he even knew they were friends with Henriette, and whether he's actually her brother. Curtis finally spills it. He's not her brother, he's her cousin, or maybe just adopted. He's not even sure, but either way she's like a sister to him. Because back when no one believed in him or thought he'd amount to anything, she was the only one who stood by him, so when he saw them with her earlier, he figured they were close enough to help. That answer seems to satisfy them, and they decide to go through with the rescue. On the way, Noel teases Alan about how close he and Henriette are, asking if there's some business going on behind the scenes, and Alan immediately shuts that down. Back with Henriette, she stays calm even while being carted off like a cartel criminal. Lisette warns her that the royals are serious and might send her to Jesus just to keep things quiet, but Henriette says she already knows that. She asks Lisette what happened with Oswald, and though she was reluctant to answer, she tells her that he was granted a pardon. In her mind though, she's only thinking about her friends. She just hopes they're safe. Meanwhile, Alan and the gang reach a dead end, with guards that would show anyone their end if they try to pass. Curtis apologizes for bringing them here, but they tell him that it's fine. Apparently the city gate is closed, and Alan figures it might be because of them, like some $1 million bounty. Curtis suggests they go find out what's going on at the guild, but he says that the girls have to stay behind, unfortunately, as the town is low-key sexist toward female warriors. Alan and Lisette head to the guild, and Curtis shows the other girls to their dorm. They tell him that they don't feel safe in an inn like that since the knights are after them like they've lost their chivalry. But Curtis assures them that it's fine and that the innkeepers won't sell them off. Back at the guild, while Alan and Lisette weren't able to get information about how to leave the city, they did confirm that the knights were looking for them. At that moment, a knight bursts in asking everyone to stay put. Speak of the devil. She asks everyone about the whereabouts of Alan and his group, but they were all uninterested. She immediately offers 100 gold coins to anyone who would snitch, and they all started jumping in like pop-up ads. One of them actually points in their direction, but they were already hot on their heels. The knight runs outside and chases them for a bit until Alan decides that it's time to leave the playing field and take to the sky. She continues chasing them but bumps into a kid who starts crying. She stops to attend to the kid, who definitely has to be a paid actor because he made her lose their trail. While they're still catching their breath, they hear a loud explosion that seems to be from the inn's direction. They arrive there to find Oswald holding the girls captive, promising to have revenge for his insane aura loss at the Elven Garden. Lisette and Alan face off against Oswald. She takes a look around and finds Curtis stuck under some rubble. She attempts to help him up, but Oswald stops her from making any moves. But Alan remains calm, so Oswald tries rage-baiting him. While he continues yapping on how he has the higher ground, Alan asks which would be faster, Oswald strangling the hostages to death, or his head leaving his shoulders. Before anything else can happen, Alan was parallel universes ahead of him and sliced his arm off. With him in pain, Alan approaches, stating that he has a bunch of questions, and tells the dude to stop whining. Shortly, Oswald's screams turn into laughter, which raises a few questions. It turns out even he knew he'd be cooked against the MC, so he reveals that he had cast Explode on all the victims in the area, and could make fireworks out of them. Even if Alan decided to cut the fuses like he did in the Elven Forest, he wouldn't be able to save everyone. Just before Oswald activates the spell, Alan pulls out his inner Dio Brando and slows down time, allowing him to slice off the fuses that are connected to everyone and save the townspeople. Of course, what just happened leaves them all confused, including Oswald, who wonders why his spell isn't working. Alan points his sword at him and it's all over for the guy. He swings his sword ready to cut Oswald's head off, but a knight stops Alan from doing so. She refuses to let Alan kill him since he's a member of the Black Wolf Knights. Regardless of the fact that he destroyed an entire town, she states that it's their squad's duty to deliver punishment. At first, Alan says it doesn't matter and doesn't believe the Black Wolf Knight. But then Celia swears on her knight's honor that she'll take personal responsibility for his punishment, and Alan stands down after hearing that. Sometime after the battle, Celia gives a report of everything that had happened to Lisette. After that, Celia requests to punish Oswald, but Lisette insists that their leader will take care of him. As soon as the hologram vanishes, some shadowy wolf figure emerges from Oswald and finishes him off. Cut to the capital. The squad's trying to figure out how to sneak in. Curtis suggests that they can go through the capital's secret underground tunnels. Since it's risky for a large group to sneak through it, he chickens out and takes the front gate, while the rest of the team use the secret passage. The team goes through the tunnels that are about as crusty as my self-esteem. Soon they run into some NPC guards, but thanks to Mylene's invisibility, they sneak past like pros. At this point they start to worry that the knights know where they are. That's when Lisette pulls up and she casually listens through the invisibility like some anime Batman. but she's not interested in dealing with the ladies and wants a one-on-one with Alan. So he tells them all to leave because he's ready to put his two swords into action. After the girls leave, the two of them prepare for a duel. Lisette makes the first move by zooming around like some wannabe Flash. After some time, Alan can tell that she's pulling her punches and calls her out, but Lisette denies that accusation. She then lunges at him with her sword, but Henriette's threat messes up her focus, and Alan lands a clean counter. Before they can go Super Saiyan, the tunnel starts collapsing, and the two of them dip. Lisette and company notice the smoke coming from the direction of the underground tunnels, and they worry that their collective crush is dead. But thanks to the power of plot armor, Alan makes it back alive and well. Curtis suggests that they rest up, but Alan makes a blue light with his hand and heads out for a random side quest. Meanwhile, Henriette is chilling in her room reading a book until a wild Alan jumpscare surprises her. He teleported to her location to rescue her, but Henriette informs the dumb MC that she can't be executed as the head of the Lindvist family. After hearing that, Alan realizes that he jumped to conclusions, and this makes Henriette ask if he was worried about her. He doesn't even delay, just straight up says yes, and Henriette's .exe has stopped responding. She tells him to go away and not to worry, so Alan bids her farewell and teleports away. The next day, the squad meets up again. Curtis reveals that if they rescue Henriette, it could lead to a full-blown war, which means that they should leave the Empire without doing anything. However, the girls all disagree with that plan. Curtis then promises that he'll definitely think of something to save her and begs for their trust. That's when Alan gets up and says they should get going. Curtis goes to meet Henriette in her cell, and he reveals that he set up everything on his own. She doesn't believe this, and that's when Curtis flexes his power. Then he drops the most cursed proposal to become emperor and marry into House Lindvist. Unfortunately, Henriette shuts down his genius idea and goes straight to sleep. So Curtis gives her time to think about the whole thing. After Alan and his crew left the capital, Lisette comes over to Henriette's cell and gives her a book about heroes. Turns out Henriette has always been a certified hero fangirl since her previous life. But the catch, she always hated how the hero died in the end, so she tried her best to coach Alan through life like she was Navi from Zelda. But alas, nothing changed for him. Later, Curtis drops by again, still simping, but she'd rather die than work with a loser like him. So he starts listing threats like he's reading off a villain checklist, including sending an assassin to kill Alan. But none of the things are convincing enough. With no other option, the man crashes out and assaults Henriette in a way that Andrew Tate would be proud of. Then he realizes he fumbled the bag and runs away. Meanwhile, Team Alan stock up on supplies. After sending Marlene and Noelle on an errand, Alan checks in with Lisette, who's fired up to rescue Henriette, whether she likes it or not. Even the knight nearby agrees with this point, and the two of them recognize who that might be. Back in the cell, Curtis returns, and he's cracked this time. Looking like he's all whack on Scooby snacks, he begs Henriette to rule the Empire with him. Then he rushes towards her like Diddy when he gets his hands on baby oil, but Henriette refuses as usual. Since that's her decision, Curtis creates some shadow hands and uses them to strangle her. Just before things get to full anime violation, Alan makes his MC entrance and frees her like the hero we came to see. Then we learn that the mystery knight from earlier was actually Celia, and she had enough of Curtis's edgy villain arc. Some time ago, Curtis made a wish to some eldritch horror that he wanted to make Henriette his, so the entity opens a portal and casually plops out the head of the Emperor like it's same-day shipping on Amazon. Now Curtis realizes that the crown's up for grabs, but didn't think he'd be allowed into the royal family. That's when the shadow person decided to grant him power to overturn that. Curtis picked up a nearby knife and started his career as a serial killer. At the same time, he began to absorb the power. Back in the now, Curtis is raging and wrecks the room. He starts to launch his shadow hands at them like Doc Ock, but Celia and Alan tag team slice them up. Curtis tries using one shadow hand to attack Alan, but he misses and ends up breaking Celia's plot armor. Luckily, they're still intact. Alan then leaps into the air like he's ready to close the anime, and instantly shuts Curtis down in one slash. But that's not all. Alan calls out the guy's entire villain arc as half-baked. After asking a few questions, he finally sees that Curtis never wanted power, he just wanted Henriette. Now with his massive L, the virgin soy boy now has an existential crisis and goes through a breakdown because he gets no damsels. But Henriette couldn't stand seeing the loser cry, so she goes to offer emotional support. However, Bro isn't taking no for an answer. He grabs onto Henriette and decides to off Alan instead. Now that he's being taken over by the power, Alan realizes that he has no other option but to end Curtis's chances of ever getting laid. Curtis launches his Shadow Jizz attack, which overwhelms the two heroes, but then Lisette swoops in, slashes the arms since, and declares she's repaying her debt to Alan. Curtis calls her a traitor, but Lisette hits him with the classic L+ ratio fuss you're losing anyway. So with that, Curtis gets into final boss mode, and Alan goes full MC mode. Curtis unleashes a mega shadow attack, but Alan slashes it apart because he's just built differently. Then Alan brings up his ultimate skill, and he lunges in to stab Curtis, and his sword begins to glow brightly. Now we cue the Mindscape dimension. Curtis mentions how Alan could have become anything he wanted with the power he had, but he remained a nobody. But Alan says he just wants to live peacefully. Eventually the evil shadow thing disappears. Henriette does a terrible job at thanking him, but Lisette cuts into the moment, saying that they have to escape. So with that, Alan takes his leave. In the end, the true story of how the Emperor was assassinated never got out, and Henriette was executed, ending the Lindvist family. But Alan rewrote the ending by saving her in the end. Later, during a picnic, Henriette asks why he rescued her, so Alan says it's what he wanted to do. After hearing his words, Henriette realizes that Alan really is everyone's hero. Thanks for sticking around until the very end, you absolute legend. Blow up the comments with Alan is the man if you want to see a part 2. Like, subscribe, and click on one of our other exciting videos on screen. Stay awesome, stay AniGeek.